A dusty human archaeologist in cargo shorts, sipping gas station coffee on a forgotten alien world, trips over rubble, and wakes up a galactic nightmare with a sword that calls him Commander. The first thing Jonathan Hale noticed about the ruins was how unimpressive they were. Dust, broken arches, and enough jagged rubble to sprain an ankle. The galaxy had promised him a relic of untold cosmic power, but what he saw looked like a construction site abandoned halfway through lunch. He squatted on a sun-baked stone, sipping lukewarm coffee from a battered thermos, and muttered, "If I wanted to sweat in rubble, I'd have stayed in New Mexico." Behind him, Professor Crix tapped his chitinous mandibles in irritation. The insectoid scholar towered over Hale, shimmering wings twitching with impatience. "Human, must you consume that crude liquid here? The caffeine stench interferes with my olfactory receptors." Hale gave him a polite smile, the kind that made people wonder if he hadn't heard the insult. "Coffee's not crude, Professor. It's civilization in a cup. Without it, my species would still be hunting mammoths with rocks." Crix's antennae stiffened. "I fail to see how." "Exactly." Hale raised the cup in a mock toast and drained it. From the other side of the excavation, a smaller amphibian assistant peeked nervously over a pile of broken pillars. Her name was Lurok, and she hadn't stopped wringing her webbed hands since Hale arrived. Mr. Hale? You're standing on the central dais. That area isn't stable." "Stable's overrated," Hale replied, brushing dust off his khaki shorts. "Besides, if this whole place collapses, we'll save months of digging." As if on cue, the stone beneath him groaned. He felt it shift, then crack. "See," he said cheerfully, before the dais gave way and dumped him 3 meters down in a shower of rubble. Lurok squeaked. Crix groaned. Hale coughed through the dust, spat out grit, and called up, "No worries. Gravity works fine here." The pit he'd landed in wasn't natural. Perfectly carved walls, etched with symbols that pulsed faintly, surrounded him. At the center lay something half buried in ash, a long blade, metal black as oil yet glinting with a subtle glow. Hale dusted himself off, crouched, and brushed rubble away with careful fingers. The sword was impossibly pristine, as though untouched by time. He frowned, tilting his head. It wasn't the design of any alien empire he knew. Too symmetrical. Too human. The moment his palm touched the hilt, his head rang with a voice. "Commander, the Legion awaits your orders." Hale froze. The words weren't sound, they were inside him, precise and commanding, like a soldier snapping to attention. His casual grin faltered for a heartbeat. Above, Crix leaned over the edge. "What have you found, human?" Hale looked up, plastering his easy smile back on. "Oh, nothing much. Just a sword. Probably decorative. Could be a letter opener for giants." The sword pulsed in his grip, heat humming through the metal. Dust fell from the walls as if the ruins themselves had inhaled. Symbols lit up, one after another, cascading outward from the pit. Lurok whimpered. "That's not decorative." The air thickened. Hale felt the hum vibrate in his bones. Statues that lined the walls cracked open, stone shells falling away to reveal armored figures within. Their eyes glowed like molten gold. One by one, they turned toward him and knelt. Crix stumbled back, wings buzzing in alarm. "By the stars! They're alive!" Hale tightened his grip on the sword. The voice filled his mind again, calm but insistent. "Commander, give the order. The Legion is prepared." His pulse steadied. Years of training buried beneath his archaeologist act surfaced in a cold, quiet wave. He could almost hear his old instructors reminding him, "Never let the enemy see you sweat." He smiled up at the panicking aliens. "Well, looks like I found the on switch." The statues, no, soldiers, rose in perfect formation, stone dust drifting from their armored bodies. Their synchronized movement carried the precision of drilled armies, not ancient relics. Lurok clutched at Crix's arm. "They're responding to him. They recognize him as..." "Impossible," Crix hissed, though his voice shook. Humans are primitive. Their kind shouldn't. Appreciate the vote of confidence, Hale cut in lightly. He brushed more dust off his shirt as if nothing unusual was happening around him. But maybe they just like my charming personality. The Legion's leader, a towering figure with a blade of molten steel, raised his weapon and pounded it against his chestplate. The impact boomed like thunder. The entire formation echoed the gesture, 1,000 armored fists striking stone with earth-shaking resonance. The ruins trembled. Hale let out a slow breath, masking the way his muscles tensed. He looked at the sword still pulsing in his hand. "Commander," the voice repeated. "Awaiting directives." The casual mask slipped for the briefest moment. His eyes narrowed, calculating, measuring the scale of what he held. Then the mask returned, a lopsided grin tugging at his mouth. He looked up at the stunned aliens and said in a voice as dry as desert sand, "Well, this complicates the excavation paperwork." The ruins answered not with silence, but with the steady march of 1,000 awakened soldiers stepping into rank and file, their glowing eyes fixed on him alone. The cavern trembled as the newly awakened soldiers fell into flawless formation. Dust rained from the ceiling, glowing glyphs flickering like stars in the stone. The sound of 1,000 armored bodies locking into rank echoed like a war drum. Jonathan Hale leaned casually on the sword, as if he hadn't just summoned a lost army from myth. "Well, Professor," he said over the racket, "your ruins are less boring now." Professor Crix flared his wings in outrage. "Do you grasp what you have unleashed? This is no trivial relic. These soldiers, they answer to you." "Lucky me." Hale raised the blade slightly, watching the line of warriors mirror the motion with perfect precision. "I always wanted interns who listen." Lurok, trembling in the shadows, squeaked, That's not normal. They're alive." Her wide eyes darted from Hale to the glowing figures. "What if they're dangerous?" Hale smiled politely. "What if I'm dangerous?" Crix snapped, mandibles clicking furiously. "Humans are not qualified to command such power. You are impulsive, reckless." "Passionate," Hale interrupted, still grinning. "Don't undersell us. Besides, if it makes you feel better, I have no idea what I'm doing." He let that hang for a moment before adding under his breath, "At least, that's what you'll think." The sword pulsed in his grip, the voice calm and precise inside his skull. "Commander, recommend securing perimeter. Enemy factions converging." He tilted his head slightly. "Define enemy factions." 3 signatures. Closing fast. Armed. Hale looked up at Crix and Lurok. "Well, good news. We're about to have company." The company arrived with all the subtlety of a parade. 3 ships descended through the ruined city above, engines screaming against the sky. Alien banners projected from their hulls, symbols of rival empires, each determined to claim the artifact. The first to land was a group of tall reptilian warriors, scales glistening in the heat. They strutted into the chamber with their weapons ready, sneering down at Hale. Their leader, a scarred brute, barked, "Step aside, human. This relic belongs to the Dravari Dominion." Almost on cue, the second group arrived, avian diplomats in flowing robes, their voices sharp as they declared, "Correction, by treaty, these ruins fall under our stewardship." The third faction stormed in before the argument finished, short, stocky creatures in heavy armor, axes at the ready. "Stewardship, my armored rear. It's ours." Hale sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Fantastic. Space lawyers with guns." The aliens turned on one another instantly, shouting, claws and wings raised. None seemed to notice the legion standing at attention behind Hale. He cleared his throat. "Gentlemen, ladies, whatever you identify as, hate to interrupt, but you're standing in the middle of 1,000 armored soldiers who look like they could eat tanks for breakfast." He gestured lazily with the sword. The entire legion shifted as one, boots striking stone in unison. The sound silenced the chamber. Every alien froze. Weapons lowered slightly, eyes widening. Hale smiled pleasantly, as though explaining rules to unruly children. See? They're very sensitive to yelling. And I'd rather not test their temper before my second cup of coffee. The Dravari brute hissed. They obey you? Hale shrugged. Obey's such a strong word. Let's just say they're enthusiastic followers. He let the smile linger, carefully polite. You know how it is. Some people collect stamps. I collect armies. The avian diplomat's feathers puffed nervously. You cannot keep such a force. Galactic Accords forbid. Galactic Accords also say you can't park your ships on ancient ruins, Hale interrupted smoothly. Yet here we are. The armored dwarves grumbled, shifting uneasily as the Legion's glowing eyes bored into them. This is unnatural. Hale tilted his head, still cheerful. So's pineapple on pizza, but we manage. The sword's voice cut through his thoughts. Commander. Demonstration advised. Establish control. He nodded faintly, then raised the blade in a slow arc instantly. The front line of soldiers mirrored him, blades flashing in unison. The sound of metal cutting the air sent a shiver through every alien present. Hale lowered the sword. The formation shifted seamlessly, shields locking together, spears angled outward, a perfect wall of steel. The reptilian leader stumbled back. They move like a trained legion. Good eye, Hale said lightly. And they haven't had breakfast yet. He let his gaze wander across the factions. Now, here's the thing. You can argue over who owns the ruins, or you can leave with your ships intact. Personally, I'd recommend option 2. The chamber was silent except for the faint hum of the awakened army. Crix finally found his voice. This is absurd. Human, you cannot threaten established empires with relics you do not comprehend. Hale turned his head, smiling politely at the professor. Threaten? No, Professor. That would be rude. I'm just giving them friendly advice, like telling someone not to stick a fork in an electrical socket. He paused, glancing at the towering soldiers now holding formation behind him. Only here, the socket has teeth. The factions hesitated, each trying to gauge the human standing calmly between them and annihilation. They didn't know whether to laugh at his casual tone or flee from the precise, deadly army answering his every gesture. Lurok whispered to herself, "They're afraid of him." Hale heard it, and for the briefest second, his grin softened into something sharper, colder. Then he clapped his hands together. All right, this has been fun, but I think recess is over. Everyone back to your ships. Let's keep this a field trip, not a funeral. Slowly, reluctantly, the factions withdrew, muttering among themselves. Their glares promised retaliation, but none dared test the legion that stood ready in the shadows. As their ships lifted away, Hale finally relaxed, lowering the sword. The glowing soldiers remained silent, awaiting orders. Crix rounded on him immediately. You reckless fool. You've painted a target on every human in this sector. Do you not understand what you've done? Hale gave him that same maddeningly polite smile. Oh, I understand, Professor. Perfectly. The sword's voice hummed in his head once more. Commander. Strategic objective achieved. Word will spread. Fear has begun. Hale's grin widened a fraction. He sheathed the sword across his back and said quietly, Good. Let's give them something to be afraid of. News traveled faster than light in the galaxy. Not through ships, but through fear. Within hours of the Legion's awakening, a dozen empires whispered the same phrase with unease. A human commands an ancient army. Jonathan Hale sat on the broken steps of the ruins entrance, sipping fresh coffee from a battered thermos, while the galaxy panicked. He scrolled through intercepted broadcasts on his datapad, shaking his head. You'd think I'd kicked a sacred puppy, he muttered. Professor Crix paced in front of him, wings rattling. This is catastrophic. The Dominion will mobilize fleets. The syndicates will demand sanctions. You've destabilized the entire region in a single afternoon. Efficient, isn't it? Hale said, raising the thermos. Most people need years to cause galactic panic. I did it before lunch. Lurok peeked around a broken pillar, wringing her hands. The broadcasts say you wield the End Legion. That name alone terrifies half the known species. Hale arched a brow. End Legion? That's what they're calling it? Catchy. Though I was thinking something friendlier. Marching Murderbots has a nice ring. Crix snapped. Do you ever take this seriously? Hale's grin thinned, and for the first time, the humor in his eyes cooled. Professor, I take everything seriously. I just don't advertise it. The sword hummed at his side, its voice steady in his mind. Commander. Incoming transmissions. 5 Empires request immediate dialogue. Tone. Hostile. Fearful. He smirked. Hostile and fearful. My favorite combination. The dialogue arrived in the form of holographic projections. 5 representatives appeared in the ruined hall, their images shimmering above fractured stone. The Dravari warlord glared down, fangs bared. Human, surrender the Legion. No primitive ape is fit to wield such power. The avian dignitary fluffed his feathers in disdain. Your species is reckless. Hand over the weapon before you burn half the sector. A crystalline envoy pulsed with cold light. By interstellar law, you are in violation of 16 accords. Relinquish control or face extermination. Hale looked around at the projections, then raised his thermos in greeting. Good morning to you too. I assume none of you called to wish me a happy birthday. The Dravari snarled. Enough games. Command the Legion to stand down. Hale stood slowly, brushing dust from his shirt. Stand down? Oh, I'd love to. Trouble is, they're very attached to me. Tried telling them I wasn't their commander. You know what happened? They saluted louder. The avian scoffed. You cannot bluff us. You barely comprehend what you hold. Hale's smile sharpened. You think I don't comprehend soldiers standing in perfect formation, awaiting orders without hesitation? Funny, my species built entire civilizations on that exact principle. The crystalline envoy pulsed again. Then know this, if you do not surrender, fleets will converge. You cannot stand against the galaxy. Hale tilted his head, tone deceptively polite. I don't need to. I just need to make you wonder what happens if you try. The projections wavered in uneasy silence. Even through distortion, their discomfort was obvious. The sword's voice whispered, Commander, recommend demonstration. Hale's grin returned. Why not? He lifted the sword, motioning casually. The Legion stirred as one, armored bodies rising from their waiting ranks. Hale gave a subtle flick of the blade. The army marched. Stone cracked beneath synchronized boots as they formed a massive square formation around the ruin, shields interlocked, weapons raised to the sky. Their unified roar shook the mountains. The holograms flickered with visible unease. Hale lowered the sword slightly. The Legion froze, statues again, as if nothing had moved. He turned back to the projections with a calm smile. Consider that a sample demonstration. Now imagine they're not just marching, they're fighting. The avian envoy hissed, feathers tight. You threaten the galaxy with annihilation. Hale spread his hands. Threaten? No. I prefer the word warn. I'm offering you the rare courtesy of imagination. Use it. The Dravari warlord leaned forward, scales bristling. Human, what do you want? For a long moment, Hale was silent, eyes unreadable. Then his smile softened, almost friendly. What do I want? To be left alone with my coffee. Sadly, your fleets make that difficult. The crystalline envoy pulsed faintly. You play at humor, but your kind is dangerous. History proves it. Wars without surrender, battles fought until worlds burned. Now you're flattering us, Hale said. His voice was calm, but his eyes gleamed with something sharper than humor. Yes. Humanity fights ugly. We don't quit. We don't scare easily. And when we do get scared, well, that's when you should run. The projections flickered as murmurs rippled among the envoys. None dared answer directly. When the holograms finally cut off, silence returned to the ruins. Crix's wings trembled. You deliberately antagonized them all. Do you seek to provoke war? Hale sat back on the steps, sipping from his thermos. War's already coming, Professor. I'm just setting the table. Lurok whispered. You sound as if you planned this. Hale didn't answer. His eyes drifted to the horizon, where alien ships glittered faintly against the sky. His hand rested on the sword, and for a fleeting second, the mask of humor slipped entirely. His expression hardened, calculating every angle like a chessboard already mapped. The sword's voice hummed. Commander. Phase 1 complete. Enemy factions destabilized. Anticipate coalition response. Hale nodded slightly. Good. Let them come. That night, under the fractured sky, Hale walked among the Legion. The soldiers towered in silence, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. He felt their discipline, their readiness, their absolute obedience. He paused before the Legion's leader, the Molten Blade captain, and studied the faceless helm. How long have you been waiting? He asked softly. The sword answered instead. Centuries. Awaiting humanity's return. The Legion exists for you, Commander. For Earth. Hale exhaled, slow and steady. Somewhere deep inside, the old soldier in him stirred fully awake. Then it's time, he said quietly. We're done hiding. The captain slammed his chest plate with his blade. The entire Legion echoed the motion, the thunderous sound rolling into the night like a war drum. Jonathan Hale stood among them, a lone human with a smile that no longer reached his eyes. Round 1, he murmured. Let's see how fast the galaxy panics. The sky above the ruins burned with engine trails. One by one, alien warships bled through orbit, blotting out the stars. From the ground, their shadows stretched across the valley like the hands of giants closing in. Professor Crix's wings rattled with panic. They've come in force. Entire fleets. Do you understand? This is extinction if you resist. Jonathan Hale sat cross-legged on a cracked stone, sword across his knees, sipping his coffee like he was waiting for a bus. His gaze followed the descending ships with calm interest. Extinction? You really think that's new for us? Earth's had that on the calendar since dinosaurs checked out. Lurok whimpered, half hidden behind rubble. They mean to destroy us all. Hale stood slowly, stretching his back with the casualness of a man about to mow a lawn, not face down empires. He looked at the glowing soldiers arrayed across the ruins. 1,000 pairs of golden eyes waited on him in silence. Commander, the sword whispered in his mind, steady as ever. Coalition forces deploying ground troops. Estimated 2 million. Air support confirmed. Hostile intent absolute. Hale's lips curved, not in humor but something colder. Perfect. The first dropships cracked the atmosphere, slamming into the ground around the ruins. Troops poured out, reptilian warriors, avian sharpshooters, crystalline constructs. All armed, all hungry to erase one human mistake. The coalition commander's amplified voice roared through the valley. Human, you are surrounded. Surrender the Legion or be annihilated. Hale stepped forward, sword gleaming faintly, his smile polite. His voice carried across the ruins with deliberate calm. Appreciate the offer. Really. But I've checked the annihilation box before. Didn't like it. The commander's voice thundered again. Last warning. Hale raised his free hand, palm out, like a teacher quieting unruly students. Warnings are funny things. Back home, we usually say them right before we do something stupid. Tell me, are you about to? The silence stretched, thick with tension. Then Hale lifted the sword in a smooth arc. The Legion moved. It began like an earthquake, stone cracking, dust rising, shields locking into seamless walls. The front line advanced with thunderous precision, spears braced, armor blazing with ancient light. Coalition soldiers fired. Energy bolts hissed against shields, scattering like rain against steel. The Legion pressed forward, their formations fluid, perfect, terrifying. Hale's voice was quiet but absolute. Advance. The army surged, slamming into alien lines like a tidal wave. Shields crushed, spears pierced, swords carved through metal and flesh alike. The valley erupted in chaos. Hale walked among the storm, movements calm, deliberate. He raised the blade and entire battalions shifted with him, blocking, striking, breaking ranks at his command. He did not shout. He didn't need to. His calm hand was enough. Crix stared in horror from behind shattered walls. This is impossible. He wields them like extensions of himself. Lurok whispered, voice trembling, he's not just wielding them. He's orchestrating. The coalition fleets above opened fire, beams lancing toward the ruins. Hale glanced up, raised the sword skyward. Shields. The Legion obeyed. Thousands of arms lifted in unison, barriers of energy snapping into place. Orbital fire splashed harmlessly against the dome of light that covered the battlefield. Gasps rippled through the coalition ranks. Their fleets had brought enough firepower to scour continents, and a single human had just nullified it with a gesture. Hale's smile returned, sharp as broken glass. He called out, voice calm but carrying, "You came here for conquest, for control, for fear of what humans might do with power. Congratulations. You just proved why we should never let it leave our hands." The coalition pressed harder, but it didn't matter. Every advance broke on the Legion's shields. Every retreat was cut down by their precision. The soldiers fought like one organism, an unbroken tide. Through the chaos, Hale walked unhurried, blade at his side, eyes never leaving the enemy commander's dropship. The sword's voice murmured, "Commander, tactical objective available. Enemy coalition overextended. Recommend triggering contingency." Hale stopped, raised an eyebrow. "Already? They're that predictable?" "Yes." A low chuckle escaped him. "Beautiful. Let's show them why humans play long games." He lifted the sword high, then drove it into the ground. The earth roared. Symbols across the valley blazed to life, lines of fire racing outward in vast geometric patterns. Buried mechanisms groaned awake, revealing colossal constructs beneath the soil. Artillery towers, hidden bunkers, engines of war. The entire ruin wasn't a ruin at all. It was a fortress. Crix collapsed to his knees, mandibles quivering. By the stars, it was a trap. The whole site, engineered. Hale looked over his shoulder, eyes hard as steel. "Correct, Professor. And guess who laid the bait?" Alien commanders shouted in panic as their fleet scrambled, but it was too late. The towers opened fire, beams lancing into the sky, cutting through capital ships like paper. The coalition armada shattered above, raining fire and wreckage into the atmosphere. The Legion pressed their advantage below, routing what remained of the ground forces with merciless precision. In the ruin's heart, Hale stood with the sword planted before him, calm amid the carnage. His voice was low, almost conversational, but it carried with deadly clarity. "You came thinking one human was a mistake, that we stumbled onto something we couldn't control. But here's the truth." He pulled the sword free, resting it casually against his shoulder. His eyes burned with quiet certainty. "Humanity doesn't stumble. We plan. We wait. And when the time comes, we don't fight battles. We finish them." The last coalition ship broke apart in the sky. Silence returned to the valley, broken only by the crackle of flames and the steady march of the Legion forming ranks once more. Crix stared, wings trembling. You planned this. You wanted them to come." Hale smiled faintly, sipping the last of his coffee. "Of course I did. Hard to study the galaxy's strongest militaries if they're hiding at home. Better to invite them all to one place. One battlefield. One test." Lurok's voice was barely a whisper. And now, you know everything. Hale's gaze swept across the ruined fleets, the scattered corpses, the silent ranks of his army. He exhaled slowly. Now Earth knows everything. The sword hummed, its voice certain. Commander. Victory secured. Awaiting next directive. Hale sheathed it across his back, dusted off his hands, and turned toward the horizon. His tone was light again, but the humor was edged in steel. Next directive? Simple. We plan for round 2.